Thank you for joining this evening, regular scheduled council meeting of the Park City City Council, December 13th, 2016 at 7 p.m. Danielle, would you call the roll?
John Leonard.
Here.
George Glover.
Here.
Gary Eldred.
Here.
Melvin Kerr.
Here.
Tom Jones.
Here.
George Capps.
Here.
Joe Pumphrey.
Here.
Jim Schrader.
Here.
The quorum is present.
Thank you. Tonight, Pastor Tom Penny is going to lead us in the invocation, and Councilman Melvin Kerr is going to lead in the pledge. If everybody please stand.
Please pray with me. My Lord and my God, it is cold outside. I thank you for giving us warmth here in this building and in our homes and in our coats. Lord, it is dreadful winter. I thank you for giving us Christmas. Lord, we have problems and troubles. I thank you for giving us solutions and helps, such as city governments. I ask that you bless this assembly, bless this council, bless these men as they make decisions for you and on behalf of your people. I ask that you bless Mr. Leonard, Mr. Glover, Mr. Aldrich, Mr. Kerr, Mr. Mann, Mr. Jones, Mr. Capps, Mr. Pumphrey, and Mr. Schroeder. Bless them with wisdom and strengthen their service. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. George
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
and Jim.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. We don't have anything this evening for awards or presentations. Nobody has signed up for public forum, and we'll start with our staff reports with our city administrator, Jack Whitson. Jack?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start off with a notice to the public and for the council. Every year, Waste Connections, because of their contract with us, looks at the CPI, which we allow them to increase their rates by the CPI, and also the cost of fuel. Well, fuel has remained stable, and so there won't be any cost associated with fuel this year, coming year. However, the CPI increased 0.95%. So in essence, it's going to make about a 15-cent per month difference in the trash bill for next year. So I thought I'd report that to you. Also, I want to remind the council members we have the city Christmas party tomorrow. If you can make it, we'd love to have you to enjoy it with the employees. Most of the things I've worked on are in the agenda, so I'm not going to get well into that. So
Okay.
if there's any questions, I'll be trying to answer any of them.
John?
I'd like to know, and I'm sorry, even though it's kind of a cold question, but what our rate of people that are using this trash at this point? If you could check on that in maybe the next meeting.
Yeah, we'll try to get that number for you. I
What's
think
our-
last time, trying to go from memory, it was pretty high, almost 80%.
And that's kind of what I like to know is what it was last time, and if you have the year before that, but maybe a 3-year span. Let us know what the number is, if it's changed any. Thank you.
Can do.
And just real quick, so while we had a brief mention of utilities, just we have right about half of the cities now signed up for the electronic billing. It has made things a little bit more streamlined in the building, and we've been saving on the postage the last couple of months. So we still like to encourage everybody to continue to get those in there and get them signed up before January 1. So we'd like to see a 90% or greater rate of people signed up for electronic billing. So, thank you, Jack. We'll move on to our Director of Public Works, Rick Norman. Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Public Works report for this evening, December 13th, 2016 is, first of all of the departments completed excellence in customer service training on December 5th or 6th. Dana set this up through WSU, Hugo Wall School of Public Affairs. This was well received. It was a short training, but it was still a good training for us. In the Park Department, with, as Pastor had mentioned, winter is here, so we've started to winterize our irrigation system. We've got those blown out and capped up and down for the season. We've also been doing quite a bit of work around the landscaping on the Floam on Grove Street. Last week, we've seeded and matted that, and we're currently working on the east side of the Floam. We're about to wrap that up today or tomorrow. Also, we have completed electrical repairs to the overhead light at the Pride Center. Actually, we had to replace the fixture. I understand that there's quite a bit of activity going over there this time in the evening, so we did get that fixed. In the street department, we've, on 57th and 58th, we've had to add some millings and crushed concrete. We had a couple of bad spots in the roads down there. On November 29th, the street department attended the West Star training on working safely around overhead power lines. This is good training for the street department. We've also converted our equipment from summer usage to winter usage. We have our plows and spreaders and everything hooked up, and so we're ready to go if we have inclement weather. Water and Sewer Department, the average work orders per day for November was 29, and also we did complete 2 consecutive days of main repairs on November 27th and 28th. That's the report. Any questions?
When you say consecutive, they were consecutive. You guys didn't get much rest in between.
I think the night before, I think they got through about 3 a.m. and we were on another one 8 or 9 the following morning. They got a little bit of rest.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Rick? Not seeing any. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. Next, we're going to hear from our finance director, Daniela Rivas. Daniela?
Mayor and Council, I'm going to do a projection for the year-end financials. I'm going to cover general fund and the utility fund, which are our biggest funds that we have. I laid near you a projected general fund summary, which has some trend history with year-end cash balances. We have a 2016 projected ending number, which is that $832,000. As you can see, our general fund cash balance is a little bit lower than last year. It is a little bit higher than what we originally projected. So as far as revenue here, our property tax revenue is up, and that's due to our valuation increase in 2015. Licensing and permitting up is up $220,000, 25%. I believe that's due to we had some cleanup on some rental fees this year. We also increased building permit fees. We also had a lot of IRBs, which equated to increased large permits. That was Masco, FMI, Central States. Also, franchise fees were up. Let's see, right there. $732,000 this year. That also equates to our increased business that's coming into town, those IRBs. We can go down now to expenditures. Expenditures overall increased mostly due to personnel costs, which included a 2016 health insurance increase of 12%, and salaries in general. Let's talk about that 832,000. You can see that we've dipped a little into our reserves. I want you to keep this in mind when we talk about our bond rating. We received a bond rating. Last week we got our bond rating. It's a process we go through every time we go out for GO bonds, and we sold bonds actually this morning. We received a AA- and stable rating from S&P, which is a great rating. It means we have a very strong capacity to meet our financial commitments. It only differs from the highest rating, which is a AAA, by a very, very small degree. It means our bonds are considered to be a high-grade bond, which is why we get such great rates on our bonds. So, the rating we received is based on many factors, which include economic outlook, city fund balances, spending, and our financial management policy. Our financial management policy, which was adopted by the council in 2014, has language in it that states that our reserve in general fund will be 25% of the operating budget. 25% of our average 5-year operating budget is about a little over $1 million. So in order to get this back to where we need to be, we need to plan out a couple years ahead and see how to get expenses down, how to maybe perhaps build some additional revenue. We've had some discussion on building up the reserve where we need to be by perhaps the selling of this building. But it's something we're keeping an eye on, and we don't plan to drop any lower than that. So, do we have any questions on general fund before I move on to utility?
Does anybody have any questions about the general fund? No?
Okay.
Okay.
Utility fund. Our utility fund revenue remained pretty stable. Water usage was down in 2016. As you all know, there was a lot of rainfall this summer and fall. Let's see. Our revenues were right at $3 million. A decrease in water sales equates to a decrease in water purchases, so our expenditures were down. So we ended up actually pretty good, even better than last year. This is a projected number, so we continue to increase that utility fund balance, so we're heading in the right direction. I don't see a need to increase rates for next year. So if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the utility summary? I do not.
Okay.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you.
That will bring us to our next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Is there a motion? Gary?
Motion to approve is presented.
And Jim?
I second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. Brings us to our next item under new business, which is consider an ordinance authorizing and providing for the issuance of general obligation bonds, Series 2017A of the City of Park City, Kansas, providing for the levy and collection of annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal and interest on said bonds as they become due, authorizing certain other documents and actions in connection therewith, and making certain covenants with respect thereto. Mr. Haas, would you like to come up?
John Haas, Ranson Financial Consultants. Always a pleasure, a little brisk tonight, but always a pleasure to be in Park City. Mr. Mayor, I will respectively outline what we have to do tonight is review the bids that we received, consider and review and accept the lowest bid. Then we talk about approving the ordinance and a resolution. So give me a new copy of the Staples better.
Thanks, John.
So, anyway, with that, You'll see that we received 3 bids. BOK Financial is the old Bank of Oklahoma, I believe out of Oklahoma City. D.A. Davidson and Commerce Bank were the other 2 bidders. Lowest true interest cost was $311, which was the lowest bid on that. Page following is a revised bid form. Because they bid a premium, the size of the bond issue was reduced from $2,315,000 to $2,285,000. With that, this will be the bid that you'll approve. Last page refers to Table 21. This is the final debt service based on the revised bid form that we recommend that you accept tonight. You'll see that the net interest cost is a $295. TIC takes in consideration the time value of money. The net interest cost does not. True net interest cost is easier to calculate, so that's the reason why we generally use that. And when we had estimated the debt service in November, we used an average rate of 3.25, so we're lower than what we had estimated, which is always a good thing to do. Far right-hand column, one of the major concerns of staff and the City Council has been the forecasted mill levy impact with $55,000 of capitalized interest that we discussed at your previous meeting. We're at the 9.58 mills, which was the target mill levy requirement that we were shooting for. So, any questions or comments, concerns by the City Council at this time?
Does anybody have any questions? John, are you loaded up from before? Yeah. Okay.
And the only thing I need signed tonight is one copy of the revised bid form. The other things, the mayor, the clerk can get together and sign that at some point in time. I believe the closing is January 10th, so we got a little bit of time for that.
Okay. Tom,
Do we need a motion?
we do.
First order of business is to
the
accept
lowest
the bid from BOK.
I would accept the bid from is it BOK,
BOK Financial.
BOK Financial, in the amount of, do I need to list the amount?
No, I would just say as reflected on the revised bid form.
Okay, as reflected on the revised bid form.
Okay, John?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the lowest bid with BOK Financial. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0.
Mayor, it doesn't designate who should accept this bid, but I would suggest it be either you or Daniela. Do you have a preference? You can make her responsible for a couple of million of balance.
Yeah, we'll do that this time. Okay, so that'll bring us to consider the ordinance authorizing and providing for the issuance of the general obligation bonds as read in item A. Tom,
I would make that motion.
is there a second? John?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. Daniela, would you call the roll?
John Renner.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Gary Eldred.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Hatch.
Aye.
Bill Humphrey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye. And that passes 8-0, and that ordinance number,
1017-2016.
okay. That will bring us to item B. Tom,
I would just like to make one comment as we're moving off of this, and I was going to do it when discussion was going on. I decided not to. In light of what's going on in the market right now, this may be the best we do for a while. Feds are talking about raising the rate, and if that happens, then everything's going to go up.
Well, Mr. Trump moved the interest rates further than the Federal Reserve would ever move interest rates, intentionally or not. His election caused the bond market, for example, the 10-year Treasury went from 1.5% to 2.5%. If you look at it in real numbers, okay, you go up 1%, but the cost of borrowing just went up 30-40% on that. As I explained in Haviland last night, not good locally, but maybe good nationally, because it's an anticipation of things breaking loose. I won't go into a conservative speech, but things breaking loose and things, business picking up and getting active with that. So, Mr. Jones, to respond, yeah, there was a number of deals that were set aside, refinancings that were set aside. Getting a net interest cost of less than 3% on this particular structure, given the climate, besides as Daniela talked about, the rating shows that there is still good demand for good bonds, which is reflected in the Park City issue. But do we expect interest rates to go back down? I don't know. The world is still a tough place financially, but we'll see what happens. Did I answer your question in a roundabout way?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I was trying to bring that out, that things aren't as good as they were last year.
As far as interest rates go.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
All right. So we'll move on to item B, which is consider a resolution prescribing form and details and authorizing and directing the sale and delivery of general obligation bonds 2017A of the City of Park City, Kansas, as previously authorized by the ordinance number of the issuer, making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents and actions connected therewith. Gary
Motion to approve the resolution as stated.
and John.
Second.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second? Danielle, would you call the roll?
Joe Leonard.
Aye.
George Fuller.
Aye.
Gary Eldred.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Katz.
Aye.
Bill Humphrey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
And that passes 8-0. And that resolution number,
Resolution is 944-2016. The ordinance number you were referring to was 1017-2016.
thank you.
And finally, Mr. Mayor, as I leave you, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr.
Same to you.
Ross. This will bring us to item C, which is consider a resolution determining the advisability of making of certain internal improvements of the City of Park City, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of improvements in ordinance with such findings. Pavement improvements for Phase 5 and Saddlebrook. With that being, with the approval being subject to letters of credit acceptable to the city. Jack?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something that we've talked about several times at the council meetings in the past, that we sold the rest of our remaining property that's undeveloped, and that was purchased based on the fact that this would be coming to us. It's basically a block of street. Some of the utilities are already there, which makes it a more economical project. Also, the developer will be putting in a gravel road at his cost. Remember, we were going to do that as part of our deal. He ended up agreeing to bring in the gravel road for the fire protection road as discussed. So this is the process of opening up another block, since all the other lots have been sold that are developable in that subdivision. So, and by him buying those lots, that we were able to pay off the special assessments that were due on those lots. So there's no current special assessments on those lots at all. So this is kind of a start over. So.
Okay. Is there any discussion? John?
How many, by doing this, how many lots does it open up that are marketable?
It's about 20, isn't it?
Yeah, a little less than 20. It's a
22 is just what I got the hand signal for.
Yeah, it's a block. It's a block with a cul-de-sac on it, right next to the north end. So. In fact, you can't even do a partial block. You have to do the whole block.
And how many are left that are previously, I'll say, developed, but that are not sold yet?
I think they're all sold.
I should say, that don't have a structure on them.
If there's any, it's less than 5.
Two, there's only 2 lots that don't have construction on them currently. Is there 5?
Okay.
They're sold, but they haven't.
They're sold to the developer?
No, to different builders.
Okay. Well, that's what I mean.
That's correct. Yeah.
But they're not sold to an individual that's ready to put a house on it within a year.
No, they're built, they were sold to builders.
I got you. And I know it's way early in this project, but what is the length of time span for having this thing ready to go for them?
Well, it depends on, if you approve it tonight,
Right.
I would say probably within 3 months.
Okay.
Depending on the weather, the paving is gonna be
I got you.
the iffy part. So,
Okay, thank you.
Jim?
I want to emphasize that the reason for the purchase was based on us working with them to get this project in.
Understand.
Okay. Jim?
I guess, okay, so this will tag onto the street from the east. This, well, the northeast corner of the street will pave back to the west and then probably go back into a cul-de-sac.
Yes, if you remember right, I discussed the fact that it was
Yeah.
better to
I-
start on the east side.
I do.
Because there were some utilities already there.
Yeah, okay, that's, I was clarifying. And how big a letter credit is he putting up?
Well, for 35% of the cost of improvements, that's our
It's
standard
35%,
policy. Yeah.
okay.
It'll be probably 400-something thousand is what the letter of credit will be for.
It's pretty
something like
sizable
that.
then.
Now, once he bids it, that cost will obviously be readjusted because the engineer has estimated high. So when the project is bid and we find the real cost, and then that will be readjusted in the letter of credit.
Okay. And then just lastly, I mean, obviously his intent is to build some houses, but has he given any indication how, on his timing? I would assume as fast as the,
He's here tonight.
oh, okay.
Matt, you want to go up to talk to him a little bit?
Yeah, didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm just kind of curious of the big picture.
The intent of the selling of the lots would be obviously as soon as possible so that we wouldn't incur any of the specials costs after the bond period is over.
Okay.
So, factoring a 3-year period would be our goal. Obviously, that can't be promised, but that's our intent.
Oh, yeah, as the market will accept them, but
Right.
it's not a hold, you're moving on them pretty quick.
Right.
All right, well, I think that's at least what I want.
We typically don't go to bonds for about 2 years, and that gives the developer a chance to sell lots and stuff, put less burden on him. And depending on when, for example, at the end of 2 years, let's say it's going to be November 2 years from now, even though we sell the bonds, it won't come up for payment until the following December, because once you pass
Right.
August, the county does not bill out, although the interest does accumulate for that 1 year. So it
Okay.
could go as far as 3 years.
Okay. I'm good. All
To
right.
give you an example, we're over 28 houses this year. And I don't know, how many do you know how many we sold in Saddlebrook? And this year? This year, 7, 8, so if he sells 7 or 8 per year, he's gonna have it pretty much taken care of.
Great.
George?
I appreciate you coming tonight. My biggest heartburn with this is I found out about it Friday evening when I opened my email. There's some people who seem to know more about this than I do. I just got to go back to the heartburn we had when the reason we got those lots is because of unpaid specials. And I just want to make sure we don't go there again. I thought we was in agreement we weren't going to. I realize we made one exception over here in Prairie Hills. That was with the Chisholm Trail State Bank backing that and their reputation. I'm sure this gentleman's okay, but I haven't seen a resume. I I mean, I haven't had a chance to look at anything.
Well, George, this is actually the fourth one we've done since then. We've done 3 in Prairie Hills and 1 at Neckle Hills since we took over these lots. So
Well, those were the one in Echo Hills. And like I say, these deals over here at Prairie Hills, we got the bank behind those. And Elmer Peters came here and sat in on that meeting. I remember very well. But my biggest heartburn is, you know, it just gets dumped on you Friday evening and say Tuesday night. It's all laid out. It's obvious a lot of work went into this, and it's put together good. But, you know, I'm not a rubber stamp. You know, it looks to me like somebody wrote a check and we're supposed to cash it. And my name's not going to be on a rubber
George, I
stamp.
know three separate meetings we've discussed this. Now, maybe you didn't put it together, but 3 separate meetings.
Jack, you're going to have to show it. You're going to have to show it to me in the minutes.
Let's slow down for a minute.
Well,
I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but I think when we go to sell the property that we own, if we never had any intent to ever let a builder come out and build on it, we should have never sold the development.
I can go there. But I also remember, it's like I've told you before, the only thing that saved this city was a lawsuit where we got $6 million. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have all the improvements in the parks. We wouldn't have the signs. We wouldn't have the Sherwood Center. We wouldn't have the library. We wouldn't have City Hall. In fact, we would be in deep financial trouble. And I think anybody that's been around here a while knows that. That's what saved us. And I just don't want to see us go down that road again. If we do, they're going to do it without my signature. That's all I got.
And then, you know, you raised some good points. I think some other fair points to point it out, too, is when we looked at our mill levy rating, where we found with other states, with other cities within the state, how far down the totem pole we were, that we've been able to keep our mill levy rate down. Some of that also comes back to that $6 million that kept us from having to raise the mill levy. The other part of this too is, and I think I've said it, is we should never go back to the position where we're doing whole developments and doing specials on it. And we've worked that situation over here with the last 3 in Prairie Hills, where we've done a road with 10 houses at a time, and as they fill out, we let the builder come back and we do it again. And this really is no different. It has more houses on it because of its setup and with the cul-de-sac. So there's going to be a few more homes involved, but we're not doing all of the lots we sold. We do a small section, you fill it out, then you come back. That's less risk for us. It's also less risk for the builder, because he's not going out there designing out, platting the whole thing, us putting streets in. And you're right, we'll be back in the same boat if we do that. But we still need to grow as a community, and if we don't do small sections at a time, there's not going to be houses in Park City for anybody to buy, and we're just going to have dirt with no growth. So we have to figure out some way in the current system that we live in and how it works on what we're going to do. And this seems to be the best option, where we do small sections at a time, let them fill out. If they fill out and you want to come back, build some more, then we just continue the process. And so far, I think that's been successful for us over this year. But I would not support going out and doing, 60 lots at a time and putting in all the street, sewer, and water for them. I think that would be suicide for us and not financially responsible.
Well, Mayor, if I could, that is my big fear, because that's the way it started before. We started out with Prairie Wind years ago, and we're very cautiously. And then early in the century, it just went complete out of control. And it started out like you say, and then, oh, well, that worked, and do it again, and then things collapse on you. And like I say, if it hadn't been for that $6 million lawsuit, we'd be in trouble. I think everybody knows that.
Yeah. John?
I asked the questions on this earlier, and I'm satisfied that I think 1 block is a reasonable amount to do at a time. I think we've seen some growth in that area. Lots are selling. If there's 7 7 or 8 a year, or whatever it may be, I don't think building one block with approximately 20 lots on it is something that's overstepping what we can maybe tackle. As you said, though, the specials were paid off. I think that makes them a little bit more marketable. May help sell even quicker. So I'm in support of this, and I'll make a motion that we approve item C as a resolution.
Okay, Gary?
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Not seeing any. Daniela, would you call the roll?
John Leonard.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Gary Aldrich.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Nay.
Bill Pumphrey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
And that passes 7-1.
That is resolution 944-2006. That is resolution 945-2016.
Thank you, Daniela. Thank you. Appreciate it. So with that, it obviously starts the rest of the parts of the phases that you have to do with the water line. So we'll move on to item D, which is consider a resolution determining the advisability of making certain internal improvements within the city of Park City, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making and improvement in an ordinance with such findings for the water line improvements in Phase 5, Saddlebrook, 3rd edition. With that same approval being subject to the letters of credit acceptable by the city. John?
Well, I guess as we were reading through the budget summary and we're selling less water, this would be a good time to sell more water. So I will make a motion to approve item D.
And Tom?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I want to make everybody understand that all of these are being covered by a letter of credit. So if there's a default any way, shape, and form during this period of time, then we can go and collect our money to pay those taxes through the letter of credit. Okay, I just wanted you to understand we have that fail-safe in place. And all these are subject to getting that letter of credit.
Tom, did you have something? Because it didn't pop up. Okay, Danielle, would you call the roll?
John Leonard.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Gary Aldrich.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Nay.
Bill Pumphrey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-1, and that resolution number,
946-2016.
okay. That brings us to item E, which is consider a resolution determining the advisability and making of certain internal improvement in the city of Park City, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of improvements in accordance with such findings for the sanitary sewer improvements in Phase 5 Saddlebrook addition, with that same approval being subject to the letters of credit acceptable by the city. John?
Motion to approve item E.
And Tom?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not seeing any. Daniela, would you call the roll?
John Leonard.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Gary Aldrich.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Nay.
Bill Pumphrey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
And that motion passes 7-1.
That is resolution 947-2016.
And that will bring us to item F, which is consider a resolution determining the advisability and making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of improvements in accordance with such findings for the storm sewer improvements for Saddlebrook Phase 5, with the approval being subject to the letters of credit acceptable by the city. John
Motion to approve item F.
and Jim,
I second that.
is there any discussion? Not seeing any. Danielle, would you call the roll?
John Leonard.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Gary Aldrich.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Nay.
Bill Pumphrey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
That is resolution 948-2016.
And that will bring us to item G, which is consider a contract with K.E. Miller Engineering for engineering services in connection with paving improvements to the Saddlebrook third edition Phase 5, subject to the letters of credit acceptable by the city. Gary?
Motion to approve is presented.
John?
Second.
Tom?
I will be abstaining because of a potential conflict of interest with K.E. Miller. I work part-time for him.
Okay. George?
Well, it looks like all the rest of it's passed, but as far as this, as far as the engineer, I can support Kurt Miller, and I will be supporting him.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. Everybody are all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. And that motion passes 7-0-1. That brings us to our next item on the agenda, which is item H. Consider a contract with K.E. Miller Engineering for engineering services in connection with the waterline improvements to Saddlebrook Third Edition Phase 5, subject to the letters of credit acceptable to the city. John
Motion to approve item H.
and Jim.
And I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
And that motion passes 7-0-1. That will bring us to item I, which is consider a contract with K.E. Miller Engineering for engineering services in connection with sanitary sewer improvements to Saddlebrook Third Edition Phase 5, subject to the letters of credit acceptable to the city. Jim
And I move to approve that as presented.
and Gary,
Second.
any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
And that motion passes 7-0-1. And that will bring us to item J, which is consider a contract with K.E. Miller Engineering for engineering services in connection with storm sewer improvements to Saddlebrook Third Edition Phase 5, subject to the letters of credit acceptable to the city. John,
Motion to approve.
is there a second? Jim?
I second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
And that motion passes 7-0-1. Next item on the agenda, which is item K, which is consider a payout on vacation to the law enforcement employees with balances in excess of the 208-hour maximum carryover as provided for the city of Park City personnel policy at an estimated cost of $5,600 from police salaries. Dan?
Thank you, Mayor, Mann, and Council. We're asking this evening that you consider paying some officers out. As we've been keeping you abreast this year, you're aware that we have been operating the police department short. The result of that is that we've had officers that have had to do overtime or come in when they had scheduled vacation, and so therefore we have 6 individuals that are in a position now, because of the scheduling conflict that we have, that they would be in a position to lose some vacation hours. So what we're asking this evening, because of the fact that our policy requires that people use those hours or they lose them, we're asking that you pay the officers for those hours of vacation that there is no way that we would be able to schedule. The police department was doing a great job before we entered into this position of managing those vacation hours, but we're in a position now that there is no way that by the end of the year that we would be able to schedule those hours out.
Well said. Does anybody have any questions for Dana? Melvin?
I make a motion that we approve this. These guys need it. I mean, they earned it, so they need it. Is there anything that we need to do to maybe see about rolling it over? Or in the future? Or
Because of our accounting process,
they don't,
the auditors have said that that is really not an option for us. So therefore, we would request that you pay that out. We have been in this position a couple of years ago. We came before
Sure.
you We do manage the vacation hours, and as you have indicated, it is something that is earned. It's a benefit that the city gives. We would much prefer that all of our employees would have the opportunity to have that break to go on vacation. That is what is needed.
Sure.
I
No, I
would
didn't
tell
mean
you
this
that,
time. I meant from now on if we need to.
yeah, that we are in the process of hiring, and that process is moving along, but we are in a position now that we just cannot give those vacation hours.
Sure.
Thanks, Melvin. Tom?
I'm going to second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much, and I would also like to say thank you to our officers who are working very diligently to make sure that the city is safe. Thank you.
8-0. Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is item L, which is considered the approval of the stormwater design manual for the city of Park City. That was a second attachment that came in your packet. Jack?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been working on this for probably, it looks like 6 or 7 months. I finally got it done. This is one of the conditions of our stormwater permit, that we have set up a set of standards by which engineers will use whilst designing stormwater facilities in the city of Park City. It has elements of, for example, for platting, it talks about 4-lot elevations. We had a problem with that last year. It requires them to do that. Also, using certain design methods when they're designing the storm sewer. Storm sewer design is not an exact science. There's about dozens of different ways to do that. Some ways are developed that benefit the developer. Others are very stringent, and others are kind of middle of the road. And so this process that I've got put in here is kind of middle of the road. Also, it has a water quality element to it that they have to meet. That's going to be important in the future when the state sets our standard. If it gets to that, I don't know, there might be some discussion about EPA pulling back some regulation. But as it stands now, they are making us test 2 points in the city numerous times a year. Based on those test results, they will probably set a standard by which we have to meet. And part of us being able to meet those standards is going to be in how we design stormwater. Another element that we're going to have to do is look more into our stormwater ordinance as far as fining and this and that and the others, but that will come later. But this is the first step in meeting part of our requirements for our permit.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Jack? Is there a motion? George?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the stormwater design manual for the city of Park City.
Melvin?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Tom?
I just have one comment, and really doesn't address drainage ditches in here. We got a nice picture of a pond, but we got some nasty ditches. Will they be addressed in the future?
They're addressed in this manner.
Well, not with pictures. So I'm just being kind of crude, because we have some nasty ditches that are developing, and we aren't doing anything about them, so.
Well, when I was talking about that stormwater ordinance there's going to be, probably going to have to look at charging some fees for that, so we can come up with some money in order to do some of these improvements. In lieu of raising the mill levy to do that, we're going to look at modest fees and develop that as a monthly charge. But that's later down the road. We need to have some discussion about that, because right now we're having to cover these tests for stormwater testing out of the Special Street and Highway Fund, Public Works funds.
Yeah, I
But
need
true,
to
we do
stop.
have some nasty ditches.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. That brings us to item N, which is consider a resolution delineating the boundaries of the city of Park City, Kansas, Sedgwick County, Kansas, as of December 31st, 2016. This is something we do annually. Jack, or go ahead, John.
Go ahead if he wants to.
Well, I mean, we do it every year. If you got anything you want to add to it, why we have to do this annually?
I think it's state law.
Right.
Requires it, but especially this year, last meeting, you annexed
Streets.
some street right-of-way, so I had to go in there and update that obvious description. And so this meets our requirement by the state to do this.
Okay,
And I
John.
think this also goes to the Census Bureau and other places they send it to, so as well.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Jim?
Second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0.
Resolution
Oh,
49-2016.
we need to do a roll call. Would you call the roll? I totally missed it. Thank you.
John Leonard.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Gary Eldred.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Aye.
Joe Humphrey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
And that passes 8-0.
Resolution 949-2016.
Thank you, Daniel. That brings us to item N, which is considered the renewal of the exclusive right to the listing agreement with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services PenFed Realty for listing agent services provided by Jordan Noon for the sale of the undeveloped city-owned lots. Jordan's here this evening. We've been working with him over the last 2 years while he's been moving lots for us. And Tom?
I would make a motion that we approve the extension of this contract.
Okay.
Do we need any dates on it or anything, or just be for fiscal or calendar year 2017?
2017, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure he'll have all.
Because the goal is I'll be gone by 2017, we won't have to. Okay. Gary?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. The next item on the agenda is considered a mutual aid agreement with Sedgwick County for the animal control services. Go ahead, Doug.
Mayor and council, this is a pretty standard agreement. The purpose of this is for the city and the county to agree that in the event of an emergency situation involving animals, that both will be at the call of the other to provide assistance if that's needed. Makes a lot of sense. Each party indemnifies the other in the event that we're the ones calling the county in. If there are any damages or claims, we indemnify the county, and vice versa if they call us in. This is terminable on 30-day notice upon action by the governing body if for some reason we aren't satisfied with it, but I would recommend that you approve the agreement.
John.
Motion to approve.
And Gary?
Second.
So, just I guess a question for Doug. You said it's terminable on a 30-day agreement, so it's continuous, it doesn't, it's not a 1 year or a 5
It
year?
isn't. It's just in place.
So,
I'm trying to think, I don't know what other ones we have, but this is really pretty common with smaller cities or with the city of Wichita or Sedgwick County and the surrounding cities to provide this mutual aid.
great plan, thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. The next two items are for two buildings within the city that we had roof that need some attention. So we went out and looked at those. And then we also had insurance look at it to see what we could look at. So we'll look at item P first, which is consider roof repairs to the community building at 6801 North Hydraulic by Homeland Construction at a cost of $38.55 to be funded by the insurance claim proceeds in the amount of $17.45 and the general fund at a cost of $21.10. I think everybody knows, if you've seen the community building, those shingles are very aged and in trouble. It's going to have to be replaced sooner than later. We did have the insurance company go out and look at it, just see if we had any type of hail damage that we could claim. And they did say there was about $1,745 that we would get towards that roof. That roof is extremely old, so I can't say that we would ever see anything more than that from the insurance company at this point. George?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the roof repairs on city-owned structure at 6455 and a half West Parkview.
6801?
Or 6801, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
And I would second that.
John?
I'm going off my memory here. Didn't we have that looked at a few years ago by somebody? And then
We did have it looked at, and Bob actually went out and looked at it for us. He thought it could withstand a little bit more, and we probably should have done it then. But then we got this last bit of hail damage not too long ago, and we decided to see if there was anything that could help the city cover that, and there was a slight amount of funding we can get to help with that roof repair.
Thank you.
So, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. That brings us to item Q, which is consider roof repairs to city-owned structure at 6455 and a half West Parkview, the old sewer plant, by Homeland Construction at a cost of $29.06 to be funded by the insurance claim proceeds in the amount of $13.14 and general fund cost $15.92. Jim?
I would move that we approve these repairs as proposed, and noting that was the low-cost provider or bidder.
Okay. Gary?
Second.
George?
Well, I'm curious what you said about the insurance company. If they're prorating this stuff, if something comes along and knocks down one of our buildings, are they going to say, well, it's an old building? And
Well,
I don't
what you-
understand the proration on these roofs. I don't understand that.
I think what you look at is like that roof, let's say the shingles are a 20-year shingle. They only have a lifespan of 20 years. They've probably been on there 25. So they've worn out their life.
I had an experience with the insurance company on my garage, and I had called the insurance company before, and they said, like you talked, they said, well, you know, it's not leaking, so if it leaks, and when it leaked, guess what? They didn't pay. And I tell you what, I think these insurance companies ought to be held to heel. Just my opinion.
John?
I guess I'd like to talk a little bit about the building. This is the Pride Building, correct?
No, this is the old sewer building on
I'm sorry,
on
that's right.
Parkview.
I did see that in there, yes. I was thinking Pride Building when I first saw it, but yeah, I remember seeing that in here. Thank you.
Okay. Tom?
I'd like to know why we're not putting a metal building, a roof on it, on the one in the old sewer plant.
More money.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can look at it, but the cost is going to be significantly more.
You're looking at a 20-year 3-tab, first time good hard wind comes up, half of them will lift up.
Well, we're not going to do a 3-tab. We're going to do a heritage.
Oh, it said 3-tab on
It
it.
should be heritage.
It's not what it says. So,
I was going to say, when we looked at it,
I may be wrong. I went back and looked at it, and I noticed that the heritage was on in the park, but it was 3 tabs on the utility building.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at it. It is, Tom's right.
it's like we
Community
wanted to
buildings,
do
heritage.
the heritage.
I don't know that. Do they say that the same thing on the community building?
It's the way it was, no, the community building's got 30-year heritages, but the other building's 25-year 3 tabs. I don't know, I didn't know why you did different too, so.
Maybe they thought.
Is
the
it a
building
typo,
would last
or-
25 years, I don't know.
I
It's
know.
pretty old
Could
building.
be.
It's our form.
We could We could approve it with the exception that it's going to be a heritage shingle. If it's not, we can bring it back.
Okay.
And
If, to,
It's a good catch, because nobody caught that.
further, I guess, is this the same circumstances as the community building was, the hail damage and all that?
yeah. So when we had that, we decided we'd just go and have a couple of things looked at to see if there was anything there. These were two of our oldest roofs that we have.
Should we consider, I know when we did this building, we put impact resistant shingles on. Is that maybe something?
Heritage is pretty good at that.
Yeah, the heritage shingle is pretty good, and the park is pretty well protected by the trees at the community building. It would probably get more damage from limbs falling on it than anything else, but the old sewer plant building.
I'm going to make a motion, we approve contingent on we checking that and making sure that they're both, I assume, going to be heritage. If there's a reason they're not, just let me know, but I mean.
No, I was
We
under,
bring it back to-
I was under the impression
Okay.
that it was gonna be a
But I'd
heritage
like
too.
to make a comment too, and insurance companies, there was a comment was made about insurance companies, they are changing. A lot of deductibles are going to 1% of the value of the house. Roofs aren't being covered like they've been in the past. So there's lots of changes. People, as they get insurance, need to read their policies. So,
I don't know how the numbers don't line up. We have a $5,000 deductible, so it looks like they're giving us some money even though, isn't that correct?
I'm going to make a motion
Yeah.
to approve this contingent on the second part of that being
We-
verified.
We already had a motion, so we need
Oh,
to
okay.
ask the two that made the
Okay,
motion
that's
if they
correct.
wanna do it with the, that it needs to be the heritage shingle. George?
Yeah, that's good.
Gary?
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
George?
Well, I look at this last one here, after all these years, the insurance is gonna pay $1,314. My question is, all these old buildings and stuff, why do we insure them? Why don't we just pay the cost when it happens? I mean, how much money do you think we paid the insurance company over all these years, and it's not coming back to us? I know what it costs to put a roof on a building like that, because they just had to do it to my garage. And I don't see the sense in paying that insurance company that money for those old buildings like that. I think we're just wasting our money.
Definitely something we can look at, doing a higher deductible and taking more of the risk to lower the premium. Something we can look at if that's what the council wants to look at when we're looking at insurance policies in the future. If we take a higher percentage of the risk, we get a lower rate. And that's something you can do with the amount of buildings that we have. I don't know, going back through the insurance process, if we could pick and choose which buildings have different coverage limits or not, but we might be able to look at something like that. Does that work, George?
That'd work. Like I say, I think we're just throwing good money after, thank you, if they're not gonna, probably been 25 or 30 years since the roof's been put on there. And how much money do you think we paid the insurance company in those years? I think we're wasting our money on those old buildings.
Okay. Danielle?
I just wanted to say that the total cost for both roofs was, and this would be the claim we received from EMC, was $8,059. We have a $5,000 property deductible, so they just cut us a check for $3,059. So, and that's pretty high. So I had inquired as to why our property deductible was $5,000 and not $2,500. Mary at EMC informed me that a couple years ago that had purposely been increased by our council to lower our rates. So that's something we can definitely do. It would increase our property insurance rates. So just wanted to throw that out there. And they also did both buildings as one deductible, and they looked at all our buildings to see if we needed to replace any roofs. So these were the only two that were subject to some damage.
Well, my problem is I get heartburn about this proration on this stuff. I can't buy into that.
Yeah, unfortunately, they get us everywhere, even on our vehicles. Put miles on it, get a couple of years old, you're not getting the same thing you got when you bought it. We have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. Next item on the agenda is just governing body remarks. I wanted to talk about one thing with you guys, and this was something that's within Jack and my spending authority. But as we look forward to moving out of this building, one of the things I really want to do is sell this facility, because I don't think we need to be in the business of having another building sitting around that we're also insuring and paying to heat and cool and plumb. But when we look at selling the building, we want to make sure we get the best value that we can on what it's marketed at. So Jack has looked into some cost to have this building appraised. And we're also talking about having the building at 53rd and Broadway appraised as well. And we have somebody that's already interested in that building. We had two people that have talked about this building that are interested in it. So we would like to go out and get appraisals done. The appraisal would be about $4,000, $2,000 per building. I have to admit, when I first heard that, I got heartburn, and I called Jim because I knew he's a commercial lender, and he might be able to shed some advice on that with me. And Jim, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, the mayor did call me, and this is a company that is extremely reputable. I very much trust them. I've probably had them appraise in excess of 100 transactions I've done. We'll get a really good report for this money. And $2,000 per property seems like a lot of money, but that's what commercial properties cost to appraise. As a matter of fact, that's a little on the low side. I've seen them be $2,500 and up. So I think they kind of gave us a discount because we're doing 2 of them instead of 1. So I just wanted to add that. While it seems like a lot of money, that's actually a pretty good deal.
So I guess kind of where I was going, just kind of more of a head nod that really everybody sees the same thing of selling this building and not hanging on to it or hanging on to the other one. And Daniela mentioned earlier in her report, one of my ideas would be that the sale from the 2 properties would go back to replenish some of the reserves to get those numbers back up. So unless I don't hear any strong argument on why we should not get the building appraised and look forward at selling those. Melvin?
I think that's a good idea. The building at 53rd and Broadway, talking about the old maintenance building,
Yep.
the police station.
Yep.
What are we going to do with the maintenance and add on to Sherwood or?
Yep, that's what I think we'd do. I mean, stick them all over so everybody's in one area.
Sure, that's a great idea.
Tom?
I assume this guy, the firm that you're using, they're all certified appraisers?
They are.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
the most
I
reputable.
want to make sure my wife came out of that business, and there's a lot of them that aren't. So
And if
I just want to make sure if you're going to pay the money, you're getting a good, qualified appraisal.
Yes,
on.
and you
Okay.
would be.
The other thing is that talking about selling buildings, I kind of am on board with the one on 53rd Street. But I think there's some potential good uses for this building. I mean, the outside frame's good, the inside could be opened up. This could be a community building that you could rent for more than we rent the one in the park for. And you could have a swimming pool sitting out back someday. I think when you sell it, you're going to regret it. So just hate to see that happen. We need to think that through before we decide to put it on the market.
All right, that was all I had, so I'll move on to Jim for any remarks.
Well, I was looking at the calendar, and I believe this is the last meeting before Christmas, so the winter weathers came in. It makes it feel a little bit more like Christmas, and I wanted to wish everybody happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, and stay safe if we get any bad weather this weekend. That's all I have.
Joel?
Same for me. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Tom?
Say Merry Christmas to everybody. I have a couple items I wanted to kind of make a note of. Senior Center, 10 times more stuff going on over there than there was 5 years ago. Just a phenomenal amount of money that Madison's grown that area, and special events have just like tripled. Just lots going on. They have a full calendar every month. Just neat things. Something George and I were talking about the other day was ordinances, and we were talking about meeting on the RVs and stuff. And who wants to get this thing started? Do we need to get with you to try to get a time set up, or you just want us to go do it?
You're the lead.
There was discussion about somebody from compliance being on that group. We'll have to pay them if they come at night. So we might want to reconsider that in the beginning. I don't know. I'll try to get something going for right after the first year, get the group together, if that's okay.
Yep.
Okay. I've been to a couple REAP meetings, and Wi-Fi was discussed. I guess there's an ordinance or something, and I never figured out if it was a state or the federal government has stepped up, but has a ordinance that Overland Park's been burned on, and I think Wichita's got hit once on, where they can come in, Wi-Fi group can come in and tell you they're going to bring Wi-Fi to the area. You have so many days to get them in line to come to the Planning Commission to get approval. If you ignore them, it's automatically approved. They've taken city utility poles down in Overland Park and put their poles up and hung lights off of them. We need to look into that, and REAP's on top of it. So need to talk to Keith Lawing about that a little bit. But I know Wichita's getting ready to get involved in it. I don't have enough information, but I do know that if they come in and tell you they're going to come into the area and they're going to do some services and where they're going to do them, if you don't react within such a certain period of time, then they get to do it automatically and we don't have any recourse on it. So that's all I got.
Just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's.
Gary?
Christmas to everyone.
George?
Same thing for me. Merry Christmas to everyone as we get ready to celebrate the birth of our Lord and Savior. With the cold weather coming on, I'd like maybe advise some of you to check on your friends and neighbors and family members to make sure they're okay. Thank you.
John?
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Make a motion, we adjourn.
All right, Jack's got something he wants.
In relationship to that, I've been contacted by SBC, who owns the tower. They said they'll give us $100,000 cash. That's their offer to buy the tower out. They keep pointing out what Tom was saying, that if these guys come in and start hanging them on utility poles, then the value of that goes to zero. So something that you may want to reconsider, getting $100,000 now.
That's something we need to bring back on the agenda and have that.
We'll be thinking about that.
Yeah. So John made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
George? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes 8-0.